Hey guys, and welcome back to another album review. So we have one from Davy Jones, which obviously this came out posthumously because he's been gone since 2012, but this was released November of last year. And it took me until last week to finally actually get it in my hands despite having it pre-ordered. I have no idea what the holdup was. Never seen this happen with 7A records before. It's really weird. And even now, the album is still not listed on Spotify yet, which is highly unlikely for them. I mean, usually it's there, like same day it's released. So I'm not sure what is up with this release. I don't know if it's like hella limited edition or what the deal is, but I would say if you can get your hands on it, you might want to do that in case there was some like rights issue with the songs or something, and maybe like they're pulling it. I don't know, but just throwing it out there. But anyway, so this is all stuff that I think I've had on different bootlegs before, but this is the first time I've ever seen them cleaned up and released professionally. So this is kind of nice to see. But it's Davy Jones, Music and Memories, the MGM recordings. It's the cover. He looks a little too much like my dad when he was young there for my comfort, but okay. Anyway, so the back cover looks like this. I like that much better. And our track list, we've got 13 tracks here. And there's a couple of dupes because of stereo and mono versions, but uh, first track is You're a Lady, the English version. That'll be important in a minute. The second track is Who Was It, the stereo version. Rubberine, the stereo version. Me and My Arrow, Think About Your Troubles, Blanket for a Sale, even though they definitely effed up and did a typo. They put Blanket for Sale, and they spelled it like it's for sale. Anyway, Lifeline, POV Waltz, Are You Sleeping, Gotta Get Up, and that one's with Mickey. You're a Lady, the Japanese version. Who Was It, the mono version, and Rubberine, the mono version. So, I mean, even though I've enjoyed having these on bootlegs, I'm like, I would have expected a little more to pad this out, personally, if it were up to me, but I guess we get what we get, but I am starting to fear maybe we're starting to scratch the bottom of the barrel with what there is available for Davy releases, but I'm still happy just to have any new Davy releases. So, alright, the gatefold on this, we've got these two photos, this one of him in his jockey days, this one in his monkeys days. And then it opens again for where the disc is, and there's another photo tucked in there in the middle. And then that looks like a little red disc, and there's a photo behind that that I'll show you. And I don't know why they'd hide it back there, it's the best one. But anyway, and yes, there is a booklet, although it's smaller than the way the box is cut, so at first I thought they forgot to throw one in, because it's a lot skimpier than they tend to be too. Like, not a lot going on here. So we have this. I believe this was from that 80s production, that pantomime of Cinderella he was in, if I remember right. We've also got that photo. Amazing. And I will read you what it says in here. And that photo, by the way, is courtesy of Nurit Wild, who is the baby mama of Nez's other son out of wedlock. So, anyway. Nearly 2 decades after the Monkees concluded its run on American television, Davy Jones defended the group's decision to end the show and ultimately pursue separate paths. I still believe we were right not to do a third series in the same old style, he wrote in his 1987 memoir, They Made a Monkey Out of Me. But whether the direction we each took was right or not, who knows? We took it anyway. The Manchester cowboy rode off into the sunset. My dad used to say, Go west, young man, and don't bloody come back. Happily, Davy did come back after he and Mickey Dolenz recorded their final session as the Monkees on September 22nd, 1970. Davy embarked on one of the most varied decades of his career. It encompassed memorable television appearances, stage productions on both sides of the Atlantic, films, extensive touring, and solo music, all of which proved there was life after the Monkees. Music and Memories, the MGM recordings, collects Jones's rare singles for the label as well as selections from his starring role as Oblio in the London production of Harry Nilsson's The Point, painting a vivid portrait of this often overlooked period of the Manchester Cowboys' considerable discography. Davy's first post-Monkees recording affiliation was with Larry Utah's Bell Records. The label had been purchased in March 1969 by Columbia Records, already an owner of the Monkees' longtime Cold Gems Records home. It's unclear whether Bell simply picked up an option on Jones's contract with the group or Jones decided to take a chance with Cold Gem's new sister label. What is known, however, is that Davy entered the studio with teen idol Bobby Sherman's producer, Jackie Mills, for a self-titled album. Although Jones was composing and demoing more mature compositions of his own, 1971's Davy Jones continued in the breezy bubblegum pop vein of the Monkees' swan song, Changes. The Bell album did not meet commercial expectations, but Davy's charming rendition of Neil Sedaka and Howard Greenfield's Rainy Jane, a chart entry in the US, Canada, and Australia, proved a bright spot, as did his non-LP single of Charles Fox and Norman Gimbel's Girl. Written and originally performed for the soundtrack of the 1971 Neil Simon film adaptation Star Spangled Girl, Jones memorably reprised the sweet I don't know what word that is, P-A-E-A-N, Paean, on an episode of The Brady Bunch that was destined to become an all-time favorite. Decades later, it would inspire his appearances in a big-screen Brady romp as well as an irreverent stage version. Oh god, I forgot about that. Still, it continues next page, didn't chart, and following his final Bell session on December 3rd, 1971, Jones busied himself with non-musical commitments. He returned to his native UK and to his theatrical roots for a tour of Peter Nichols' play Forget-Me-Not Lane, following its run at London's Apollo Theatre. Mid-tour, he flew back to the US for another exciting project, the pilot for a proposed Saturday morning variety series entitled Pop, to air on ABC TV. Bell bankrolled the pre-recording sessions, again produced by Jackie Mills. Among the songs recorded was Irish singer-songwriter Gilbert O'Sullivan's humorous No Matter How I Try. Crucially, taping afforded Jones the opportunity to acquaint himself with producer Mike Curb. The musician, entrepreneur, and MGM Records chief appeared on Pop with MGM artists The Osmonds and his own Mike Curb congregation. Among the label's other signings was none other than Mickey Dolenz. ABC aired the lone episode of Pop on July 15, 1972, to little fanfare. 4 months later, Davy Jones made his debut on MGM Records. Tony Scotti, not to be confused with Tony Visconti, Tony Scotti, then a senior vice president at MGM, was paired with Davy for his debut single. They were joined by arranger-conductor Tommy Oliver, 1932 to 2006, whose vast discography boasted recordings with everyone from Doris Day to Jefferson Airplane. Who Was It, recorded on October 5, 1972, returned Jones to the Gilbert O'Sullivan songbook. The droll, bouncy tune was introduced on O'Sullivan's hot-off-the-presses sophomore set Back to Front. Despite its charming melody and quirky lyric, in which the singer professes an unabashed devotion to loving you, amid a number of romantic missteps, Who Was It wasn't selected for single release, so other artists jumped on it. Andy Williams was... I had no idea he did one. Andy Williams was first to release it as a non-LP single in the US. In the UK, Andy's brassy, up-tempo take appeared on First Time Ever I Saw Your Face album, while one-time Beatles engineer Norman Hurricane Smith took his own, mannered interpretation to number 23 on the UK singles chart. Tommy Oliver accompanied Davy's impishly delightful lead with lush strings and jaunty banjo for a rendering that stands apart. MGM pressed a mono-stereo promo indicating Who Was It as the A-side. On November 4th, 1972, Billboard praised Davy's MGM debut. The Gilbert O'Sullivan infectious rhythm material serves as potent top 40 and MOR material for Jones's move to the label. I'm not sure if they meant more as in the word or if they just typed that weird. Anyway, curiously, the decision was made to relegate Who Was It to the flip side of the commercially released single. The new A-side was Peter Scolarine's You're a Lady. The earnest ballad was the British singer, songwriter, pianist's debut in both the UK and the US, where it reached number 3 and number 50 respectively. Davy recorded his sensitive vocals to You're a Lady with Scotti and Oliver on October 11th, just as Scolarine's single was set to arrive in American stores on London Records. Whereas Who Was It might have gained some traction before Hurricane Smith's single hit the Billboard Top 100 in March 1973, Jones's You're a Lady was quickly eclipsed by Scalaren's original. Davy re-recorded You're a Lady in Japanese for that market, and that rare recording is included here, which I also had on a bootleg already. So, before Davy's next 45 was released, he appeared as himself in animated form in a Season 1 episode of the new Scooby-Doo movies, which premiered on Saturday morning, December 2nd, 1972. Note that song is not on here. Not long after, MGM taped a September 18th session with Tony Scotti for Davy's second and final single release on that label. Singer-songwriter Alan O'Day would go on to write hits for the Righteous Brothers, Rock and Roll Heaven, Helen Reddy's Angie Baby, and himself, Undercover Angel. But in 1972, he was probably best known for penning Bobby Sherman's top 30 success, The Drum. Davy introduced O'Day's whimsical Rubberine, an ode to an inflatable girl, She Came Last Week in the Mail, in a banjo-driven arrangement complete with woozy brass and tinkling piano. That sounds like such an AI way of wording it. Woozy brass. Although, I mean, it's accurate, but still. MGM issued a mono stereo promo to radio in spring 1973. On April 21st, it made the spins and sales list in Record World. The following week, the publication added the single to its choice programming list, yet stock copies backed with Who Was It were scarce and airplay dried up. The single's chances quickly deflated, and Davy's MGM tenure came to a quiet end. A cover of Little Anthony and the Imperials' Tears on My Pillow was attempted at the October 5th session, but never released. Davy didn't have much time to dwell on his lack of chart success at MGM. He jumped into a mini tour of Lionel Bart's Oliver, which played Los Angeles and San Francisco from May 3rd through August 18th, reprising his Tony Award-nominated role of the Artful Dodger opposite Ron Moody, who created the role of Fagin in the musical's 1960 London production. A couple of years later, in 1975, Davy teamed with old friends Mickey Dolenz, Tommy Boyce, and Bobby Hart as Dolenz, Jones, Boyce, and Hart, the guys who wrote them and the guys who sang them. The foursome recorded studio and live albums and toured extensively in North America and Southeast Asia to delighted audiences. There's this photo here. I'll show you guys if it'll pick it up. It's pretty good. Anyway, continuing on. By 1977, Davy was ready for new adventures, and so was Mickey. We could be like Crosby and Hope, Martin and Lewis, Morecambe and Wise, Jones recalled his monkey mate insisting. The duo jumped into a stage musical of Tom Sawyer at the Sacramento Music Circus and then decamped to the UK for a different theatrical production, which finally gave Jones the opportunity to record an original cast album. Though he opened Oliver on Broadway, he wasn't heard on its cast recording, which was made during the show's pre-Broadway tour. Davy departed the 1965 tryout of Pickwick before the show hit New York, where it went unrecorded. Man, I lost my spot for a second. Okay. RCA hitmaker Harry Nilsson devised a story of The Point at the dawn in the 1970s. Inspired by an acid trip, it chronicles the story of Oblio, the only person to have a round head in the Pointed Village, and his pointy-eared dog Arrow. Murakami Wolf Films' The Point premiered in February 1971 on ABC TV. Nilsson's accompanying album debuted on the Billboard 200 1 month later, spending 32 weeks on the chart. The animated special earned critical acclaim, and Oblio's song Me and My Arrow became a hit single. Theater companies contacted Nilsson about staging The Point, and he granted permission in 1974 to the Boston Repertory Theater. Their production, starring David Morris, was also a success. The Point was then mounted at London's Intimate Mermaid Theatre for a limited engagement at Christmas 1976. Dancer-actor Wayne Sleep starred as Oblio. He would receive an Olivier nomination for the role. A couple of new songs were added to the score, Blanket for a Sail and a song pulled from Nilsson's Sandman LP, Thursday, Here's Why I Did Not Go to Work Today. Now see, they wrote Blanket for a Sail here correctly, even though on the back of the album, they do not. Who is at fault here? I don't know. Anyway, plans were made to reprise The Point at the Mermaid for the following Christmas. Colin Bennett, who originated the Count in 1976, became the director and tailored his production to the talents of its two new stars. Davy is Oblio and Mickey is the Count's kid and the Leaf Man. Oh, I didn't realize he was the Leaf Man too, and that's awesome. Additional songs were added too, including Gotta Get Up from Nilsson Schmilsson and Remember from Son of Schmilsson. Davy and Mickey gamely promoted the musical, including a delightful joint interview with the young hosts of London Weekend Television's Our Show. They performed Gotta Get Up with musical director Mike McNaught and introduced Oblio's dog, Arrow, a puppet. And then there's this photo over here. Okay. Anyway. The Point began previews on December 22, 1977 and opened on the 27th at the Mermaid, and MCA Records preserved the production on a cast album. The label even released a 3-song single in January 1978 with Davy's Lifeline, Mickey's It's a Jungle Out There, and the duet of Gotta Get Up. Every one of Davy's songs from the score is included here. It was a wonderful experience working at the Mermaid Theatre. Why do I keep almost saying merman? Under the watchful eye of founder Sir Bernard Miles, wrote Mickey in his 1993 memoir, I'm a Believer. Since I hadn't done a lot of theater at the time, I found it stimulating. Sadly, things turned sour when the two monkeys had a falling out. Of course they did. As Mickey explained, the atmosphere on the Point had started out clean and clear, but gradually got thick and clouded with emotional pollution. Dolenz and Jones wouldn't work together again for nearly a decade. Davy spent many of the next few Christmases in the UK doing pantos such as Jack and the Beanstalk, Puss in Boots, Dick Whittington, and Cinderella. He also led Godspell at London's Fortune Theatre in 1985. Mickey remained in England, moving into behind-the-scenes work in film, television, and theatre. The early 1980s found Davy and Mickey individually, enjoying the resurgence of the Monkees in Japan, performing and recording in the country. Davy's MGM output resurfaced in 1981 as Side 1 of the Japan-exclusive compilation You're a Lady. Side 2 was dedicated to a selection of Mickey's singles for the label. When the new wave of Monkey Mania reached American shores thanks to the fledgling MTV network, it was inevitable that the group would reunite. Frankly, I had no idea I'd had such a good time, Davy quipped as he looked back in his autobiography. In addition to recording and performing on stage in concert and theater, he participated in various Monkees reunions through the time of his death on February 29, 2012, at the age of 66. His recordings for MGM, though few, showcase the breadth of his talents as a pop interpreter, with effortless charm, innate theatricality, and abundant musicality. And that was written by Joe Marchese from thesecondisc.com, written in June of last year. Then we have this picture from them in The Point. I've seen that one before. It's also got the edge of that particular version of the album release. And then over here, it says a musical fantasy. The Point was a musical fantasy written by Harry Nilsson, which in the early 70s used to be shown on TV every Christmas or Boxing Day, I can't remember which. It was a really magical piece with great Nilsson-esque songs, a lovely score, and the whole thing superbly produced. I used to take it with me to show the producers I was working for at the time that this should be the benchmark for children's albums in the UK. They passed. Happily, in 1976, I was lucky enough to MD the first stage production of The Point at the Mermaid Theatre in London. Wayne Sleep played the part of Oblio, and the show was a great success. The following year, Davy Jones played the part in partnership with Mickey Dolenz. The cast album for that show must hold some sort of record as the fastest production ever. We recorded and mixed the album on Sunday, and it was on sale in the foyer of the Mermaid on Tuesday night. That was written by Mike McNaught, he was a musical director of The Point. So then we have these photos back here with the liner notes across them, and then just the 7A record stuff. And then that's the back cover of the booklet. So, with all of that in mind, we're going to start diving into it track by track. I'm going to rate it, even though just the too long didn't read version of this, it's mid at best, I think, but we'll go through it bit by bit. Okay, so the first track on here, the English version of You're a Lady, I am so conflicted on this because A, on one hand, already controversial within the fandom and within just like the classic rock community at large every time this song comes up because everybody's like, ew, it's so saccharine, it's overly sweet. I am the lone defender of this song most of the time. However, I don't know if the bootleg that has floated around for decades at this point is just so damaged to where it feels super different from this, or if they used a different vocal take of this. But I feel like something has either been tweaked pitch wise or it's an alternate take. 'Cause I feel like he's also breathier in this version too than the version I have always heard in the 20 plus years I've been a Monkees fan. But there's that, but there's also oddness with the echo, and that also tips me off to thinking maybe it's an alternate take because it's like it has the echo from the old version but then put over the take they're using here, and it doesn't quite match, especially towards the start of the song. As it gets further into it, it doesn't really get that noticeable, but right at the start, pay close attention because something feels off. And that makes me wonder if that has something to do with why it took so long from when it was supposed to be released to when we got it. Was this just a botched rush job? Like, what's going on here? Because it feels like something happened and they changed something here. But otherwise, apart from the weird echo thing, and apart from my brain going, wait, this is different, I have never heard most of the instruments on this song sound so good. The flutes or keyboard or whatever that is at the beginning of the song still feels warbled to me though. And maybe that's just the way they were supposed to sound even back then. Maybe it was just too damaged to fix. I don't know. But everything else on it is so crisp, and I'm like, I've never heard the pianos and the guitars on this sound so lush as they do on this version. So it's like, man, if only it weren't for that echo kind of like screwing with your head when you listen to it, especially if you have headphones on. And I tried it with two different pairs just to rule out the possibility that maybe it was these. It's not these. I also tried it without headphones and listened to it, and you can hear it even without headphones if you're knowing where to listen for. So for that, I think I'm gonna like dock a half of a point off of it. But otherwise, I think they did a really good restoration job on the rest of this track, though. So the second track on here is Who Was It? And this is the stereo version first. And this one, another one where a lot of people will ridicule this track both in and out of the fandom. But I defend this because I like it. I think it's kitschy. I like it. But I can see people's complaints about this one. Like, with the banjo in it, it feels old timey. Probably even in the 70s when this came out, it probably felt dated even back then. So you can imagine this many decades forward how this one comes off. So it's like, yeah, it's not the finest moment, but on the other hand, for me, the minute I hear that in one of Davy's songs, it just makes me think of the Monkees years when he would get on his little Dapper Dan suit and everything and like do Swanee River and shit like that. That's what it makes me think of. So for me, it feels very Davy Jones coded and perfect for him. Now, most of what they did with this restoration sounds really, really good. I have only one teeny tiny minor complaint with it, because of course I do. Much like so many other classic rock remixes in recent years, a lot of the horns in the middle of the song have been turned down in the mix. And I'm like, aw, I mean, it's not a subtle amount. It's like they're barely there in parts of it where they were prominent before. Now, I can understand turning it down some so you don't blast people with headphones on. That's fine. No issue with that. But this is turned so far down in the mix that I'm like, oh, shit, what did you do? So that's my one little gripe with this one. But other than that, they did a really, really exceptional job at restoring this track to probably what it sounded like when it first came out, minus that one little tweak. So the third track on here, there is literally no normal way of talking about, and we are talking about the stereo version of Rubberine, which, I don't know, every time I get to drop this song on a new unsuspecting person who does not know what it is, it makes my day. Because who would ever expect Davy Jones to sing a song? A love ballad! to a blow up sex doll. Yes, this is real life. Yes, this is a real song, and I don't know how it got made. I don't know its origin, but I find it hilarious that this thing exists. So, it's another one that, just like the last track because of the banjo, but also the fiddle in this one, probably sounded dated when it came out, but that also adds to what makes it so comical because it just sounds so freaking wrong that this thing exists in the first place. But also, much like the last track, the horns in it have been dialed way down in the mix. I'm like, really? That was kind of like one of like the big focal points in the song in terms of like musical motifs here. So I was like, oh, okay. But I also noticed they pitched it up a little bit. That is one thing that annoys the shit out of me with 7A records is where they go tweaking with the speed of it. They think it's subtle, they think no one will notice. I noticed. And I am positive they did it because they made his voice sound almost like pre-Monkeys Davy. It's pitched up that much. It doesn't sound like it's that big a deal until you notice that, and then you cannot unhear it because that is not what this track sounded like before. So, again, my nitpicky little gripes with it, but I'm being honest here, so you guys know what you're getting into if you decide to pick this one up. So, I feel like they did not need to do that. Not one bit. They could have left it at the correct speed. Okay, so the fourth track on here, yeah, it is fourth, is Me and My Arrow, which this one sounds phenomenal, but that's because the cast recording this was from was already in already better quality than the other stuff that was on here. So that doesn't surprise me. All the ones from The Point are no doubt gonna sound great. Um, this one, I love this kind of like a slightly disco-esque, disco-adjacent, somewhere in there version of this track. And fun fact, I actually was acquainted with this version of The Point before I was acquainted with the just straight Nilsson version of The Point. But both were preceded by the movie version of The Point with Ringo Starr as narrator. As a tiny little kid that I spent years trying to ID what the hell that movie was without the internet to help me. Yeah, that was fun, and I still managed to nail it down by the time I was 19, so I don't think I did too terribly bad. But anyway, so this one though, I mean, it's fun. Out of the different ones from The Point, I would say this is probably the biggest bop of them. It's probably the most well-known one of them, besides Are You Sleeping, which is also on here. But I mean, I really, really like this one. And actually, in between recording these little snippets, I actually linked my nephew to a copy of this version of the song because he's really into disco right now. I felt like he'd probably get a kick out of it. So I really like this one. Okay, so the fifth track on here is Think About Your Troubles, which this has the opposite problem that I've made about the observations of the tracks they pitched up. This one they slightly slowed down, just a hair. Just a hair. And vocally, I don't really notice it, but the music I notice it on. However, this is one track where actually I feel like I can see the vision on why they made that choice, and actually for this track it kind of works because it makes it more in alignment with the Nilsson version, which is of course the original, than the other, which it's not a huge nitpick, but it is an observation of a difference made. But the rest of it is so crystal clear and so much nicer than the original that I'm just like, okay, any gripe I have with it is forgiven in favor of everything they did right with this track because the whole soundscape of this track is like an eargasm. This one, especially if you're a Nilsson fan too, on top of being a Davy fan, you're gonna like this, even if it is a hair different from the original. Okay, so the sixth track on here is Blanket for a Sale, or as they mistyped it, Blanket for Sale. And this one initially, God, it's so close but so far. Initially, I thought, hey, they didn't even screw with this one. The speed sounds perfect. Everything's perfect. All it sounds just like boosted, punched up volume and clarity, as opposed to what we had all along, removing like the pops and hisses, all that stuff. And then it gets towards the end of the song, and all of a sudden, like mid verse, just like the volume went voomp on Davy's vocals. No subtle gradual fade out, and it wasn't meant to fade out there either. And it just stays down the rest of the song. It's like, oh, you were so close to getting this right. Like, whose first day on the job was it that mixed this? Like, I have questions. I have questions. But if not for that, this would have been an awesome remix of the song. Or a remaster. What is the term? I don't know. Okay, so the seventh track on here is Lifeline, which is one of the most chilling songs of the point in general, both Harry's version as well as this version of it. But they did an absolutely beautiful job restoring this one to what it probably sounded like at the time of recording. Again, minor nitpick. They did move the violins down in the mix a bit and the keyboards up a little, it didn't need to be quite that weighted. It could have been a little more balanced, but other than that, they did a really, really beautiful job with this. It must be in stereo because you can hear, especially in the intro, the audio going back and forth between the speakers, and it's just lovely and trippy in all of the best ways, and I otherwise have zero complaints about this one. Okay, so the eighth track in is POV Waltz, which I mean, admittedly isn't my favorite one on there, of the original or even the Davy one, but I mean, at least with what they did to it here, I feel like they did a good job, because the more shrill aspects of the harmonies, they've muted down a little. I mean, they're still there, but it doesn't feel obnoxious or like it's ear piercing like it once did. So I appreciate they did that. But everything else about it feels pretty good. So even though it may not be my favorite track in general, just subjectively, I mean, everybody's entitled to their own taste, they did do a good job with the remixing on this one. Okay, so the ninth track on here is Are You Sleeping, which is the other track that I think is really well known from The Point. And this one I don't really have too much to complain about here. They didn't fuck with the speed. The mix, I mean, there's a couple things where I'm like, it's negligible. It's not even worth mentioning that I noticed because it doesn't really detract from it. It also doesn't add to it. So I was just like, well, it's different, but not necessarily bad different, if that makes sense. But I mean, it is a good track. I wish there was more Davy on it. He only does the beginning and then it kind of turns into like an ensemble cast kind of a thing. So it's just like, well, I would have preferred it to be pure Davy all the way through, but I mean, you get what you get. Okay, so track 10 is Gotta Get Up, which is the one that's a duet with Mickey. And this one, it would be good if they hadn't have dicked with the audio level so much and added extra echo onto it that it didn't need added to it additionally on top of what was already there. So in the first part of the song, Davy's vocals are up, Mickey's vocals are kind of buried in them. I mean, you can still hear him, but it's definitely lowered. I'm kind of okay with that. But then by like the end of the song, it's switched, and now Mickey's up here and Davy's down here, kind of lost in the sauce, as it were, which is weird given that, it's for a Davy release, not a Mickey release, so what the hell kind of biased treatment is this? I don't even know. But I mean, other than that, like, it's bop, it's a good song, but I really would have preferred if they hadn't have dicked with it quite so severely. I still feel like somebody was in training who worked on this. Okay, so we're getting towards the end of the album. So the 12th track is the Japanese version of You're a Lady, which I'm glad that they included on here because I feel like it is not nearly as well known as the English one. And if you do hear it, you generally hear the live version from that 80s Japanese concert of Davies, which I still argue is probably the biggest concert he ever played in his life, and it's awesome to hear the fan interaction on. But I digress. But this one is the actual studio one. And this one, I don't know, I almost like it better. Maybe it's the novelty of hearing Davy sing in Japanese. I don't know, because in that live version, it's like halfway through he goes from English into Japanese. It's not the whole thing straight through. This one's the whole track. And it's really cool. And again, maybe it's just novelty, and I'm sure he's not doing the greatest job at pronunciation. It sounds like he's struggling a little, but I mean, I don't speak Japanese, so I mean, Tokyo Brian, if you're out there, you should look this one up. But anyway, and tell me how well or how poorly he's doing. But anyway, I like this one a lot, though. I just think it's really cool. But then again, I grew up watching anime, so of course I think it's cool. Okay, so the second to last track on here is the mono version of Who Was It, which I don't really know why they included these two on here unless you're listening on a very specific system. You don't hear that big a difference, even though these two tracks didn't have the master tapes available for remixing like the rest of this did. So there's a subtle perceptible difference here to where it's a little bit muddied, it's a little more compressed, but ultimately it's still a way better quality copy of the song than I have ever heard before prior to this. So even in mono, it sounds better. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like we got gypped a little bit since essentially, because these two songs are repeats, we really only got an 11 track CD here. And most of that was already available on that cast recording of The Point. So I don't know. I feel more than a little gypped here. Okay, so last track on here is the mono version of Rubberine, which this one you can tell a marked decline in the quality, whereas the other, it's not that different from the stereo one that's on here because they had the masters, but this one you can hear the voice is very compressed and a little bit like overblown in the cans. There's little things with the different instruments where you can just tell that it's kind of crunchy, if that makes sense. And I'm like, ah, okay, that's where the marked quality decline is. I'm like, oh, that. Why did we include that? I have questions. I don't understand. Somebody please explain it to me. So, anyway, overall, I think I would give this like a 7 out of 10. It's slightly above average. It's still pretty mid, but I mean, as a Davy fan, gotta have it. So, I mean, I waited many months for it to get here. Maybe that's part of what is adding to me being just like, this was not worth the hype, but if it had been here day one, maybe, I don't know. But after waiting several months past when it was supposed to be here, I was like, ugh, this, I don't know, I feel a little ripped off, and I hope it's not a sign that 7A is starting to go, yeah, but who even knows? So, anyway, that's it for this one, guys. So, as usual, you guys know what to do. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a like. If you're not already and you'd like to be, click subscribe, hit that notification bell icon so you never miss an upload. Leave comments down below. Make sure you're following my social media accounts, my Facebook fan page, my Twitter, my Instagram, my eBay, my Reddits, everything and more. It's all down below. And if you like what I do here on this channel and you'd like to help support it, the donation link, as always, is down in the description. Get your name on the end card for a month from the time of donating. Anyway, guys, till next time, see ya.